Life Beyond Labels is a Quiet Loud Studios production, proudly featured on Sports E Media. Discover more at quietloudstudios.com. Background music created by Yo Crane. Hello, welcome back to the Life Beyond Labels podcast. I am so grateful that you're taking the time to listen to this episode today. You could have listened to literally anything today. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you've listened to this podcast before, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you keep coming back. And I hope that you get some nugget of inspiration or a new way to set goals or whatever it is that you might need from this episode, because this is a New Year's Eve episode. And even if you listen to this episode after New Year's Eve, I just want to channel some of the energy that we get from New Year's Eve sometimes, which is the goal setting, the excitement, the renewal. And you might not be feeling that this year, but just I want to enter that kind of mind space together for the sake of this episode. So I would say I was like 16 when I realized that the ball drop in New York is sponsored by Planet Fitness every year. And I remember turning to my mom and she was like, well, of course, what better time to market to people for signing up for the gym than in the new year when people make those goals. And when I was 17 and 18, I worked in a gym and that was spot on. So many people flood in and come in the new year, which is awesome. And then over time, of course, it starts to go down. The number starts to go down, which means that many of us, if not all of us, can relate to that feeling of setting a resolution, getting excited, and then that very first time that you miss it, the very first day that you don't do what you said you would do, there is this guilt because whatever it was got in the way. You didn't wake up when you said you would, whatever it was that I was planning to do. And then once you break that cycle once, it's difficult to feel the same excitement about it because of the guilt. And then when you miss multiple days, the guilt compounds. And so I'm a big proponent of setting tangible goals. I would be remiss not to say that. But I started seeing a real difference in being able to not only keep my commitments to myself throughout the year, but actually feel the same satisfaction in what I set out to do when I started to make two different types of lists. And so I don't ever go out on New Year's Eve. And I used to think that that was maybe, quote, bad. And I, quote, should be going out on New Year's Eve, making plans. But I started to really enjoy New Year's Eve so much more when I just accepted how much I love to stay in. On New Year's Eve, I put together my calendars, I make a vision board, I reflect on my year in my journal. I have one of those 1 second video per day apps that I use. I write out my goals, and it's like this major craft day. And I will document my life, what I've learned about myself and the world and who I want to be. And it's honestly just one of my favorite days. And so instead of feeling like I'm in my 20s, I, quote, should be going out. Once again, there is no should. If you go out, that's awesome. I will probably try that at some point because it sounds fun. But I enjoy staying in and I'm going to let myself do that. Also, for the last few years, I haven't gone out because I typically have a 6 a.m. or a 7 a.m. flight on January 1st of every year. So I work this part-time job for a relative who owns a transportation management company. And so for the first 2 weeks of January, I'm in Las Vegas working this job. And no, it is not that kind of Vegas trip. It is not that kind of Vegas trip. It is one of the largest shows. Actually, it is the largest show that the company does every year with like 130,000 attendees. So my brother and I work the show together and we're working like 16, 17-hour days. It is cold. We're outside sometimes, or I'm at a desk at the airport for like 12 hours. We're managing cars and buses. And I'm so grateful for the job and I get to go, but it's just not glamorous. It's customer service. And so the point is that at the start of the year, for the first 2 weeks of January, I am completely out of my routine. And every year I have a goal of getting into a routine and specifically a workout routine. But it's difficult because where we stay in Las Vegas is off the strip, if you know Las Vegas. But it's just I don't really feel the safest. It's kind of motel, doors are on the outside kind of style. And the first few years, I couldn't walk to the gym because it was too far to walk by myself. And then last year, I finally had a room next to the gym. And I went in on one of the first days of the trip. And then this older gentleman like joined at the gym and started to spark some uncomfortable conversation. So I ended up having to leave and I didn't really feel comfortable going back, which is like happens, frustrating, whatever. It's annoying. But I packed all these clothes and I'd made this commitment. And then this happened at the beginning of the trip and I didn't feel comfortable going anymore. I didn't really work out in my hotel room because the floor was dirty. And so I ended up, I mean, that's not the whole reason. I also just let myself be tired. And so I had this grand plan. And then right off the bat, I felt like I was making excuses. I'm not exercising now. Now I'm beating myself up. I'm working these long days. I'm just out of whack from the start. And so I'm frustrated, but then this is where I've applied the art of channeling the feeling of New Year's Eve at any point, regardless of the date. And this is especially where I find that my two different lists or sets of resolutions really come in handy. And so the first list of resolutions is nothing new. It is my tangible goals, my to-do list. This is where I make my SMART goals and my routines. And if you've never heard of a SMART goal is an acronym and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And so these are the typical goals where I would say, I want to wake up at 6 a.m. on weekdays, or I want to book at least 10 speaking engagements by October. I want to hire a speaking agent by June of 2025. If anybody listening. But I have these big dreams and my SMART goals, and then I map out the steps that I need to take to get there. And so I do that typical outline of goal setting. But then I've added to this process. And so I have my second list, which is my vision list, or I would describe it more as like a vision letter. And so this sounds cheesy, but it's this broad letter describing not only what I want to do, but who I want to be this year. And in order to reflect on who I want to be, I also have to reflect on who I am right now. And so I write this letter to myself, and it's basically just a list of things about myself. So if I were to write a right now letter, I would say, I'm 23 years old. I have short brown hair. I live in North Carolina. I spend a lot of time thinking, and I sometimes wish that my brain would slow down. I feel things very deeply. I go to yoga and I clean the studio once a week. I'm getting my master's degree at NC State, which feels bittersweet. I am interning. I'm working for the school. I'm grateful for my home. I sometimes feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and sometimes I worry about having too loose of a direction. I feel like I've been growing in my ability to not need to prove myself. And I basically just list all of my circumstances, feelings, and things that I like, whatever it is, like a get to know yourself letter. And then I write a vision or a description letter of where I want to be. And I visualize what I want my life to feel like, not just what I want to have or achieve, although that's included in the letter, but what I want my life to just feel like. And when I write it, I usually don't use terms like I want to or I hope to. I write it as if it's happening right now. So a visualization, but on paper. And so these aren't measurables, it's a compilation of descriptions. And I know this isn't a new practice either, but I know some people might need a reminder to try it. And so this would be an example of a 2025 letter. I would say, I'm Kelsey, I'm 24. And then I would say, I have beautiful energy. I take the time to notice what's around me. When I am with people, I'm fully present so they know that they have my full attention. I'm better at saying no, but I still have the courage to say yes to things. I laugh a lot. I love the people around me and I prioritize them. I smile more than I cry. I allow myself to cry. I handle grief better than I did last year. I take the time to write and pray and grow as a person. I have good style. I'm careful with what I buy. I give generously. I care about people, social issues, and the world. I live out my faith in a way that's safe and accepting and approachable. I'm confident in my abilities. I accept help. Actually, I'm comfortable asking for it. I walk into rooms with confidence. I create a safe space for people. I do regular acts of both quiet and contagious kindness. I'm an interesting person who reads books and is always learning. I go to church every Sunday that I'm home. I volunteer regularly. I wake up early. I'm in good shape. I feel stronger than ever. I've graduated with my master's degree. I travel around the country as a full-time motivational speaker. I get to use the story that I was given to really help people and help other people feel seen for a moment. Um, I'm grounded. I've found the perfect routine for using social media as a tool for business, but also not living for the camera or oversharing. I put my phone away in the morning and at night and when I'm with people. I'm early to the events I say I'm going to go to. I balance work and life and love and relationships well. I speak with intention. I've paid off my student loans. I've been invited to speak overseas. I host top global podcasts. I drafted my first book. And so I basically just describe how I want to feel, what I want to do. I'm successful, abundant, healthy, generous, and all of these statements that are aspirational. And so they include goals, they include feelings, they include attributes. And I set a date for when I want the letter to kind of be true. But so many of these statements are things that I want to work on in 2025. So, for example, right now, I wouldn't necessarily say that I handle my grief well. I kind of avoid it. I haven't been reading books. I struggled to go back to church routinely, but I'm much better at it right now. I get stressed about social media. I haven't found a perfect balance. And that last paragraph is just all things that I want to be true and want to be able to say by the end of 2025. I want to be able to say, my podcast has grown. I've paid off these loans, but also include those feelings in there. Like I feel fulfilled. I feel grounded. And this visualization for what I want to do and how I want to feel and what I want to be. And it's a combination of those three things. And so I write out this broad picture alongside my specific goals. And I still map out the steps to get there. But more often than not, looking back at this letter keeps me on track more than my specific goals sometimes. And here's why. So let's say my goal is to work out at least 3 times a week, and I make it to Friday and I haven't done it. And I think it's safe to say that we all reach a point sometimes where it's like, well, I already messed up this week. Might as well just try again on Sunday. I ruined it. Why even try? I already didn't hit my goals. Or you miss it. And even if you get right back on track the next day, the guilt is still there. So even if you went twice this week, you still don't feel like you did it. And so for the times that I feel unmotivated, I look at my vision letter and I think, what kind of decision would the dream version of myself make today? That doesn't mean I need to be on track every single day, but I need to be on track a majority of the time in order to believe those statements that I wrote. So by the end of the year, what will making this decision feel right now? Feel like right now? No, feel like at the end of the year. And what decision do I want to make from the time I open my eyes in the morning to the time I lay my head back down on the pillow at night? And so I reference this vision letter and I can almost transport myself into the feeling that you get when you do complete your goal, that gratification that you feel afterwards. And so reading this letter really motivates me to become the person I want to be, not just cross off the checklist that I created. And so more often than not, the vision is what motivates me more than the plan. And it helps to remember that the goal isn't to just build a life that looks successful, however you define success, but also one that feels fulfilling and feels successful, however you define that. And that forces me to keep in touch with myself and do the inner work of asking myself, am I feeling strong? Why or why not? Because let's say your goal is to work out 3 days a week. Just because you do that doesn't mean you automatically will feel good. So when I played softball and I woke up at 4:30 and I went to the gym 5 days a week and I picked myself apart with dwindling confidence and little sleep, that wasn't exactly ideal. And so this description of how I want to feel forces me to keep up that internal work, asking, what am I feeling? Why? Alongside these tangible goals. Asking, is the process of achieving my physical goals aligning with the person that I want to be? So if I were to think back to New Year's Eve 2021, if you've listened to this podcast before or episodes before, 2021 was a rough time. It was not a good year for me. And my goal headed into 2022 genuinely was to get out of bed the next morning. My goal was to make it to the next day. And what really helped me heal from all of that when I couldn't stick to a plan was a vision. And all my life, I was told that my goals had to be concrete. So it felt like I was being too easy on myself. But for the life of me, I could not stick to a routine. Especially at this particular time, I was a mess. And so I just started envisioning this happier, healthier version of myself and figuring out what could I do each day to get just a little bit closer to that version of myself. And I daydreamed what it would feel like to be happy again until one day I recognized that I'd finally done that. And so I still had to take those little steps and make micro decisions and take action to get there. But the vision is what kept me hopeful and kept me motivated. So my SMART goals and my vision letter are separate, but they help each other. And so as you go into a new year, a new month, a new day, stop and visualize where you want to be, how you want it to feel, and allow yourself to believe in that. So on the daily, I actually very cheesily have a to-do list and a to-be list. And my to-do list is my emails, my schoolwork, what I need to accomplish in a day. And my to-be list is a reflection of how did I treat people? What was my attitude? What did I learn about myself? And so I'm able to check in on how am I progressing not only in my tangible physical goals and that progress, but in my progress as a human being and my soul and my kindness. And so I match these two up together at the same priority. I also incorporate a lot of symbolic timing into my life. So if I feel on track, I go through this whole process again and I'll write about who I am right now, what I want to feel like in 100 days, where I want to be, where I want to go in life. And so even on a random Tuesday in March, I sometimes decide if it was New Year's Eve, what would I start doing tomorrow? And that really helped me to stop being a person that would say, on this day, I'll start. On the first day of the week, I'll start. On the first day of the month, I'll start. No, like start right now. Write down your achievements and your adjectives because you're not going to feel like doing or going after it all the time. And understanding that who you want to be comes from those decisions that you make when you don't feel like it. And there's comfort in knowing that most people don't feel like it. So I'm saying simultaneously take that action. An object in motion stays in motion. And visualize your life and take those steps towards that vision and allow yourself to dream and pair it with this bigger dream that you have for yourself. So what helps me take action isn't that I wrote down that I would work out 3 times a day. It's reading this vision for myself of a woman who wants to be strong and feel strong and takes care of herself regularly. And it's not that I wrote down that I wanted to practice my speeches twice a day. It was reading and reminding myself that I want to walk onto a stage with confidence and I want to make an impact. So visualize, describe, feel it. So whether you're listening to this episode on New Year's Eve or on a random Thursday morning, whether you've kept up with your New Year's Eve goals or not, think about what you want to do. But also don't forget to think about who you want to be this year. What do you want it to feel like? And let me know if you do end up writing yourself a vision letter or you try this out. Like, I would love to know. I'm 23 years old right now in 2024, and I'm still trying things out. So I always really love knowing, and I'm curious to know if you've tried this, if it worked for you, if it helped, and just get different perspectives on topics like this. This is more of a conversation than me just trying to impart wisdom. This is just me imparting things that have really helped me. I hope they help you too. And I'm open to hearing whatever else helps you to stay motivated, stay true to your goals, and just dream about the person that you want to be. So thank you so much for joining this episode. I really hope that you leave with a little nugget of inspiration to become the person that you dream of. And thank you so much to my amazing community of listeners for joining me. I love you, and I will see you next time on Life Beyond Labels.